Hey everyone, this is Leigh with Arts Council OKC Creative Aging Program. And this week we're going to do something a little different. We're going to use soft pastels, and I thought lighthouses would be kind of interesting. Something simple, shape to do to kind of get you started. Some of you have done soft pastels with me before, and others haven't, and it's actually really quite easy. Now these are student grade soft pastels. Are nothing uber fancy. They're relatively inexpensive at any art supply place. And I said easy. This is simple. It takes time. So I'll kind of talk you through it just a minute before we get started. I have this one that I have started, and basically what I like to do is pull out all the colors I think I'm going to use and put them aside, and so that you have them out. And granted, you can change up your colors and stuff, so that's the easy part. And soft pastels are very forgiving, so if you mess up, it's no big deal. Now they are messy, and that's why I have paper towels on here for wiping your hands off. You definitely don't want to get them wet, or when you come back into your image, it'll mess it up. So I'll just kind of run down the materials list. So we're doing soft pastels. And then what I'm using today is just basic construction paper. And you can use any color you want. This one happens to have tan underneath. So I'm going to do an example with the black paper underneath. And so this is just a multicolored pack. Feel free to use whatever colors you want. Paper towels definitely for wiping your hands off during the process. And for the final detail stuff, I haven't used any on this one, but you can use a white and black charcoal or pastel pencil. Totally optional. You don't have to do that. So basically what we're going to do is, like I said, pull out all the colors initially that you think you're going to use, and then we're just going to work in the background. Now you don't need a pencil, any kind of number 2 pencil. We're just drawing and we're sketching with the pastels themselves. So on this, what I did is I kind of figured out how the line I wanted for the grass or where the hill is. And then I started adding, and I kind of denoted where I wanted the lighthouse to be. And I kind of chose, I used white just to kind of outline it. And then I kind of went in with multiple colors of blue, with a light blue, kind of a darker blue, and then an even darker blue, and just blended them into the background. And the thing is you're going to be going over this multiple times. There's tons of layers of soft pastel on here. Even if it looks like a simple design and a simple composition, there are lots of layers of color. And so you can, lots of ways of doing it, but I'll talk about that here in just a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and get set up here in just a sec. Okay, now I am set up, and what I've done is I have a board, but I have a whole bunch of pieces of paper underneath because this is a hard board. Now, what I find that works really nicely is like a piece of foam core, or if you have a nice flat surface. My table is a little wonky, that's why I have this underneath here. So I have a nice flat surface, but I do want to have some cushion, so I have a bunch of pieces of paper underneath here. And then, as you can see, I've pulled out some colors that I'm going to use. Now I can also change my mind, no big deal. But just, it's easy to have some out here to start with. And what I'm doing for this one is I just have a little black and white image of a lighthouse and the composition, just so I can kind of get an idea of how things are. But it really doesn't matter. You can adjust it, and as long as you kind of get it to where it kind of looks like what you want, then that's the main thing. I just kind of like to have a little reference point. So what we're going to do, and I'm using black paper on this one because I know that there are some rocks in here, and sometimes having the dark background will help enhance the colors on top. So if you want something a little bit lighter and softer, then you can use like a brown paper, or some other color, even blue. And this one I'm going to do a little darker tones. So basically what I'm going to start out with is, I'm just going to start out with a pastel. Basically, okay, now I changed my, I'm going to start with doing a horizon line because this has some water and then rocks. So I'm just going to take it and do this long ways across. And if it's a little lumpy, no big deal. I mean, it's going to have some rocks over here. And then I'm going to start with doing just kind of getting the lighthouse area here. So it's just very, very basic. And then I'm going to kind of come out here and do some of and if your horizon line needs to actually be higher, that's fine too. I may do that. So where my rocks can come up here. And this just kind of comes back okay. And this is, like I said, all just to kind of give me a place to start. Okay. So, and like I said, this is going to look really strange for a long time. So don't worry about it. And then also embrace the mess, because your hands are going to get dirty, and I've got paper towel over here. I can wipe them off, because sometimes if you get too many colors on, and then when you're trying to blend it, then your color exchanges on the paper. No big deal, just to wipe them off. So, and I know that these are my rocks are gonna be kind of dark, so I'm gonna kind of get, I should say they're gonna be grayer in tone. So I'm just gonna kind of do this, and you're gonna be changing. And so what I'm doing down here is I'm just adding in some water, but you're still going to do some directional lines. So this is kind of how I'm filling this in, because the water is, on this is going to be kind of smooth, and it's going to, I'm not worrying about coming up and hitting the edge of where the rocks are. I'm just kind of bringing it right on up. And, so you're doing a lot of different colors. Now, like I said, you're going to be blending this in, but I just wanted to kind of get a base coat. And then you can take your fingers and go across here. And like I'm just going in one direction. Now you can come back, but I'm going in a straight line, just because that kind of keeps the water look to it. And now if I were to blend with my finger, kind of come up here, see how it softens it differently. So if you're wanting and keeping with kind of water lines, then just do the horizontal. And then, and we're going to add the sky in, and that's going to soften that top edge too. And like I said, this basically is all we're doing is getting background color, just the underneath color, okay? And let's see. And I said I kind of wanted to keep a darker sky, but that doesn't mean you can't have color in it. So I'm going to add some nice dark blue, and I'm going to add some nice purple, except you can't see that, and I'm just using the side of the pastel, and I obviously have some of the other colors on my fingers, but that's okay. I'm going to be going over it. You just definitely don't want to put your hands on it while you are getting closer to the end. So, and by using the pastel in this way, I'm also kind of moving it around more as if I'm like doing some clouds. And then you can add some white in here. You can even do it in a circular motion too. And by just going over the other colors, you're blending them in. So you can kind of get a cool effect. Whoop. Okay, and you just keep adding them. And like I said, you're still going to be going over this quite a few times, so don't think too much about it. I'm just kind of getting in here and getting around the edges of everything. And then remember too, if you've got a bunch of paper underneath here, if it slips and you're going over it, and make sure you move it so you don't accidentally get a hard line underneath there. So I'm just kind of coming up, wiggling this around, and then I'm kind of coming around. So I've got the rocks right. Okay. And I'm just going to blend some more stuff in here. And like I said, you can totally change your color scheme if you want, but I kind of like the idea of having a little bit of flowing sky. But you can have more of a realistic sky that you know, totally. I'm kind of going for something a little more dramatic on this black paper. Okay. Okay. And I will, for this initial layer, kind of blend it a little bit, you know, with my finger. And I like to use my finger versus paper towel because people have a tendency to, you know, blend too much of it off with a paper towel. So I only use the paper towel in this instance for my hands. And so if you know you're going to have rocks around here, you kind of bring it over and curve it a little bit, but then I kind of blend this in a little straighter down here, just where the sky meets the water, and then kind of do some circular motions up in the sky. Now remember, this is going to look weird for quite a while, so, and just keep going and blending back here. And then if you need to pick up your paper, which I often do, and I'm just going to tap it, get all the extra stuff off, because I don't want to like wipe my hand across it, because you'll, you know, smear it all, which, you know, maybe that's what you want, fine, but otherwise I just try to keep it like this. So, and while doing this, you're going to bounce around and do a lot of different stuff. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back in with, let's see, oh, this is the dark gray. I'm going to use a brown in some of the rocks and just kind of make some pattern, not necessarily a pattern, but I'm just kind of doing little chunky areas where for rocks. And like I said, you're going to be layering this a lot. So I'm going to do some black too. And I'm just kind of wiggling it around. Kind of gives it that craggy look. And I'm going to use some of the dark gray. I'm going to use some light gray too. And like I said, it looks weird for a while, but I just want to kind of get some color down. And you're going to have, you know, and if in the foreground, the rocks are going to be a little bit bigger, unless it's totally all far away. So really, however you choose to do it. And you could also do this as grass. You certainly don't have to do this as rocks. It's just really what you're feeling. Oops. And just be aware, you know, you're going to be blending over and over and over again with stuff initially. But then also you want to make sure that if, like over here, I wanted to have a little bit of the hill coming up here. You can see a little bit of water in the background, but I wanted some of the rocks to come up here. But so make sure you remember that and don't keep blending it out. So, and so I'm going to kind of take this and do a little kind of a darker edge, but you can see how just by getting in some lines, you're starting to bring out the edges of your rock. Now you're going to blend some of this in. So, and then we're just going to come back in with some lighter colors and keep blending on top. And, you know, it's going to look kind of chunky for a while. Don't worry about that. But so, and just really use your pastel stick. Let it help you with the shape. So you can use it like this way. If you're needing to do big spaces, turn it to the side. But I'm using like the little end because I'm trying to make kind of rocky looking shapes. And just, you can layer in a lot of these just really quickly because you're going to be building on top of them over and over again. And then if you want to, you can kind of tap down the starkness, because if you blend it, it's going to super soften it, which, you know, if that's what you're going for, that's fine. But otherwise, you can kind of come in and just take your finger and just tap it down so it softens it just enough, but it still keeps your basic shape, okay? So, and then we're gonna keep doing this for a while, and I'm gonna come in and then also just make sure, be aware of your fingers and how much stuff you have on them. So we're gonna come in and kind of tone some of this stuff down. I mean, I just got basic shapes in, even though it looks like a hat on the top of the lighthouse right now. No big deal. And then I want to kind of come in with some whites, and then kind of a periwinkle, because you know, and some shadow, and just add some contrast. Okay, and then we're just going to keep adding. And then if you accidentally make your lighthouse really skinny, no big deal. I'm going to keep going. So you get the basic idea, and you just keep going over it. And so the water line kind of comes behind here. So I'm just going to add some kind of dark and just kind of run this along again. And then I know I want to make sure I add some of my rocks back on top. So, and you'll just kind of keep doing this. And also, I'm standing up right now. It just, you know, but it can kind of wear on you. So make sure if you're sitting down, that's great. Just be comfortable, but also stand up or hold your paper away from you so you can kind of see how your lines are, you know, your composition and your shapes, and if it's looking like how you want it to look. Okay, so while you're getting in all the basic stuff, I'm just going to kind of blend, and then I'm going to keep adding to it, and then we'll come back in a minute and talk about it some more. All right, now you can see that I've been adjusting the rocks, and what I wanted to say is that it's really kind of cool. So when you have a lot of layers of color already, then I'm going back in just like with this square in and just kind of moving it around and kind of giving the rocks a little more dimension. And because you have other colors underneath, it blends them in, okay? And then I'm going to bounce back and forth and do a little bit of darker. So it really kind of gives it some nice depth. And just, you know, experiment with how you're holding it, because I'm not doing it like a pencil. I'm really using it on the square end and having the pastel itself work for me. You know, it's becoming a nice tool, but you can just see how just by adding these other, you know, bits of square color in here, it blends and mixes with the others, okay? And then, like I said, you know, areas you want to blend, but not too much, just tap your finger across. And then I added some other colors in here, and I was toying with how I wanted the horizon line to be. And then, you know, the water comes across here, and this would be a good instance where you can stand up and make sure you're kind of getting it in the right direction. And then also, it's okay to go straight across the top of your rocks, because what you're going to do is you're going to come back in and, you know, add them back in. And then if you want to, you can actually use that corner edge of your pastel. And then I just like to bring the color down in, okay? And so you can kind of have big, little rocks, big rocks, any of that. So just really kind of experiment and have fun with it. But we're going back in with our rocks to kind of make sure the blue is behind your rocks, but kind of keeping their shape. And then, all right. And so then you're also, you know, what I also did a little bit too is kind of come back in and add a little bit of black just to kind of give a little more definition. And in this instance, I am using a little bit more of the corner. And see, just by kind of adding in like little dots and lines, but then I pat it with my finger, then it kind of, so it's still there, but not exactly. And then I can go back in with, if there's like more of a space in between rocks, and kind of do a combination of the edge of the pastel and the bottom. So it just kind of adds a nice bit of depth. And like I said, you're just going to keep going over this. You're going to go, oh my Lord, how many times? You just keep going over it. And then you'll take some of your lighter colors and kind of do the same thing and kind of blend in up close to this dark line, but so it's not as heavy, but see how it kind of really has a nice shape to it, but so your black line is still there, but you just soften it by adding another color because it's blending it out a little bit. Okay, and you can change your lines, and then if it gets a little too light, then come back in and add your darker. Okay, and then just tap it. So, okay, and then you just keep going. And that's the thing about pastels, you just keep going. You just keep adding and tapping and blending and just keep going. Because I'm spending a lot of time on the rocks just because, there are a lot of them. But the great thing is you're not going in here and going around every single rock. You're using your pastel to help get your shape. And that saves your hands. Okay, and it saves you time, even though this is a time-consuming process. So, you just kind of keep going in and blending your colors. And then, you can come back in with some dark brown in here because that adds nice, rich tones in here. Okay. And just kind of experiment. So, but now you get the gist of the rocks. And see, it's just a lot of bouncing back and forth between all the colors. And, here again, don't think too much about it. You're just kind of getting in your shapes. And just see what ones you like. And then go, whoop, come back in and, okay. So this is just a process, but you can see it's kind of coming together where it has some nice rock shapes. Looks like a very rocky outcropping. It'd be kind of hard walking. So anyway, and then just be aware, like right here, I kind of had my hand sitting. So we're just going to kind of come back in and work a bit on the water some. And we're going to work back up on the sky. Now I added some hot pink and some lighter pink in here because I was trying to decide if I wanted to have kind of a little glowing line for the sky and kind of blend it up. And then I'm just kind of going around this stuff here too. And it looks kind of like this is jumping up a little, which that's fine. And I can still decide and change my mind if I want to. But that's the great thing about pastel is you can just change your color and go, ooh, don't like that. And just blend it. And then I'm just going to kind of tap along this edge. Okay, and then I'm just going to kind of run. Now, one thing you do need to be aware of if you're using, I'm kind of going uphill, but that's okay. When you're using a lot of blues, and you're trying to come back in with a yellow, just remember that yellow and blue make green. So if you're trying to have a highlight, just be aware of what color you're on top of. So if you really want a bright yellow spot, don't put blue underneath, or it's going to stay green a lot, okay? So just be aware. And then I'm just going to keep adding some nice colors. And just kind of, I like this kind of really atmospheric kind of look to it. Okay, and then, so you're just kind of getting a build up. And now because this is construction paper, it's not going to hang on to the pastels as well as it would if it were actually, pastel paper, because that has a bit of a tooth. And this construction paper is pretty smooth, but you can still get a really nice image with just plain construction paper. Now, certain colors don't really work as well. Like I found that like yellows and the pinks paper themselves really kind of, in my mind, don't work as well. But, really just kind of experiment and have fun. The great thing is that you can do really kind of cool soft pastel images with construction paper. So you're not out a lot of money, which is awesome. So you see, I'm just kind of going in and using a combination of, circular motions and kind of up and down motions. Now, if you want a really stylized sky, you know, the other lighthouse I did was more stylized, where I really kind of kept the lines in there. This one I'm kind of blending out a little bit more. I'm doing a little bit of combination. So really just kind of have fun with it. I think I'm having a hard time getting this little bright pink in here. But see, by adding lighter colors, it kind of gives that the parts of the clouds are glowing. Now in this instance, you can tap it a little bit, but if you want it to kind of still glow, then don't really blend all of it in, okay? And just kind of experiment with this. And I'm kind of coming in, see, on the edge here. So, and then I'm just going to kind of lightly tap a little bit. But see, it looks kind of like it's glowing up in this, you know, up pretty high in the sky. And you'll be like, well, Leigh, it's really darker outside. But, you know, that's okay. It's your own picture. You can do what you want. But now this looks like a little flat, so we'll want to come back in and add some deeper color. And this is sometimes what happens when you're working with construction paper, that you're kind of blending the surface of the paper a lot and it's having a hard time, but that's okay. And then we'll just kind of keep covering it up with some darks and then just kind of tapping it, and try not to blend it too much because you want to keep the integrity of the image and the paper itself. You don't want it to pill too much. Okay. So you get this, totally doable. I mean, this, you just have to, you know, be patient and embrace the mess. And then just, you may end up having to get up every once in a while and go wash your hands. I mean, main thing is just be aware of what colors you're doing and come in and take a dry paper towel and wipe your hands off. It's kind of like dusting. And then you can kind of come back in here some more, okay? And so we're just kind of building everything up. Now I'm kind of leaving, and I adjusted, as you can tell, I adjusted a bit of the shape of the lighthouse because it was a little wonky. No big deal. So I'm just kind of come in and let's see. Since it's kind of darker out, you know, I'm just going to kind of come in and add a little bit of this periwinkle as a line to be kind of darker at night, because even if the lighthouse is white, it won't read completely white. But here again, you can have some creative license and really just do what you like. So you can have a super bright white lighthouse if you want at dusk. No big, you know, just have fun with it. And really just kind of use whatever colors you want to do. So you can even add some red to this black, just kind of give it a darker. So definitely, you know, use this lesson as an opportunity to experiment with your pastels, because pastels is all about blending color. You're not ever going to have just a flat pastel color. That's not how they're designed. They're designed to blend. It's a type of painting, even though it's dry, it's a type of painting. So by layering all the colors on top of each other. And even if it looks strange, just, you know, keep going. And then you might go, well, I'm not really sure why you use that color. That's totally fine. Just keep going. And then, you know, you want to kind of make sure you bring your sky up kind of close in here so that you don't really have that defined line of your white pencil. Whoops. That's okay. I'm going to come in here with this purple. And so it kind of has that edge still. If you want an edge that kind of looks like it's glowing a little bit, that's fine. But just make sure you kind of blend it out. Okay. Woo. And then depending on if you want to have like dark water, and so I'm going to pause on the sky for a minute and then come in with the water, you know. You can kind of have your, now if you want your water to kind of have more movement, you can kind of come in and just have like large swaths that are kind of doing something a little different, like the tides kind of coming in and out. So you can just see by doing those moments, this little movement looks more like a little bit of sea spray is popping up, okay? And I add a little lighter blue close to the shoreline so you can kind of come in and add a little bit of white to kind of blend that in. And just kind of, and then I'm going to tap some of this down. Okay? And just really kind of have fun experimenting with it. Pastels are really great. They're very forgiving, and I think they're a lot of fun. And like I said, they will totally wash out of your clothes. No big deal. And, you know, you just want to make sure you dust off occasionally, you know, tap your paper, that kind of thing. And be aware of where you are so that you're not putting your arm in it. So that's why sometimes if you're doing certain things, it's easier to stand up and do it. And also it helps you get some perspective. But, yeah. And so... and, you know, I'm just kind of coming in here and doing some... And if you do something you don't like, then that's fine. You can just kind of... And then, like I said, you can use a white charcoal pencil, pastel pencil, either one, just for like little details if you wanted to kind of come in. But it just depends on your look. If you're kind of going for a really nice atmospheric look, then you don't have to come in and do distinct lines. Now, if you really want to have these little lines up here, then it is easier with a pencil. Or if you have a fairly new set, or if you have one like this that's kind of sharp, then you can do that. Just really just see what you have and how you want to go about it. A lot of this is just figuring out what you like and what you don't like. So, because there's so many different ways of doing pastels. You know, obviously mine is a little more of a stylized interpretation because I want you all to feel like you can really do any, it doesn't have to look exactly like the image. I always like to have reference images, like I said, just to kind of give me a composition and elements that I like. So, you know, and I'm going to keep working on the water some and just kind of blending. The cool thing about having black underneath, it really kind of adds some drama and dimension. And then, you know, you can also bring some pinks down into the water if you want to. And then I need to kind of just blend a little bit of this pink back up into the sky a little bit so it's not a... Or you can have a really nice highlighted line, which is pretty. It looks kind of like the sun is setting. So just, and then if you really want something very bright like that, then just get it on your page and then leave it. And don't blend it. You know, now I've got some issues with, you know, stuff being flat, but no, I can fix that. But that just gives you an idea of, you know, how you can get a really nice highlight or a really nice bright glow, but you're not blending it in, okay? So, all right, I think this is on its way, so I want you guys to just kind of have fun, and we can add some white back in here, but you're just going to keep doing this, and I'll come back later after I've, you know, finished it and kind of show you and talk to you about any minor details, but for the most part, you know, this is on its way, and I'm excited to see what you all come up with. So, and then just remember, just take your time. You do not have to hurry through this. I'll add some pinks over here. So, and, you know, stand up or hold your paper away from you so you can see how it's looking. All right, so embrace the mess. You guys will have fun with it. I just know it. And have fun with it. Just take your time. Just do the basic shapes. Break it down. Lighthouses are very simple shapes. And then just have fun with the ground or the grass, any of that. So, all right, that's it for this week, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. All right, the last thing that I wanted to say is that when you're done getting your image the way you want it, have all your nice little detail bits that you don't blend, then you need to spray it with a fixative. Now they make a workable fixative, or you can actually use hairspray, which works well. You just want to make sure you use an aerosol. And what it does is it keeps the pastels on your page. Now granted, if you rub on it, it will come off, but it keeps the major bits of pastel on there so that if you're going to keep it, it'll, you know, add to its longevity. So now if you are just using this as an exercise and you're not going to end up keeping them, then you don't need to spray it. But and the nice thing about hairspray is you can get it anywhere. So all right then, thanks again. We'll see you.